Welcome to the space where knowledge meets the action. Welcome to the Empowerment Show, where we break down the barriers, helping you grow. Financial literacy, speaking truth to the power. Real conversation, changing lives by the hour. We inspire to change, here we challenge the status quo. Sharing tools for building wealth, watching your seeds grow. Empower you to take control of your future. No more living in the past, we're the authors of the suture. Get ready, get set, let the movement begin. Because empowerment starts now, let the light in.
Yeah, I like the way that sounds. I tell you, my son, he's a genius. He does his thing when he makes these intro songs. All right, my name is Kendall Stevenson, and welcome to the Empowerment Show. This show is, we basically bringing people that from different walks of life. We don't always have to talk politics. We don't always have to get into all of the drama, but we like to keep you informed. Lately, I've been reading the papers and doing a little research, and I come to find that African American women in this country, they have a high death and maternity. I didn't know that they had so much of a high rate in deaths, and I wonder if that's due to a lack of, let's say, home care, maybe food that they eat, or maybe they're just not receiving the proper treatment like they do in some of the other neighborhoods and some of the other cultures. But today I'm here to talk to a midwife. And I think she may be able to answer some of the questions that I've been asking. So, there she's at the door. So let me let her in, okay? Hey, how you doing, Abby? I heard you at the door. You were ringing the doorbell, so I figured I'd let you in. I was just talking to the audience about midwives, and I was letting them know that the maternity rate for deaths for African Americans is like some of the highest in the country, highest of all cultures. So I wanted to ask you about that. I know midwives, they play a very significant role during the pregnancy of a woman. So I just want to ask you pretty much about that. Is there anything we can do to maybe lower the death rate?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a traditional midwife, trained by apprenticeship. So I'm not trained by institution. I'm trained by elders who are trained by elders. And we have a maternal death rate that is, maybe 54 or 55 in the world. And that's at the bottom. We rank worse than some countries, like Afghanistan. And in our country still today, Black women actually die at 2 or 3 times the rate of white women. It doesn't matter what their income level is, what neighborhood they're from. A lot of the latest stories, actually, some of these women have devoted their lives and become maternity care physicians, and this statistic still took them. And it is your short answer. It's a lot of things, but it absolutely is simply just systemic racism. There is no we can't call it anything else. You've seen stories probably in the last couple of days about the two Black women that were cut in cesareans against their will with court order in the hospital. We've never seen a white woman or a rich white woman have to go through something like that. But underneath it, it really is. I mean, there is research on ignoring Black women in pain, Black women in labor, the C-section rates and the intervention rates, just for them alone, exceeds mine by like 3 times. So it is systemic and it is cultural. The way that the hospital, these things have their own culture, right? Like this hospital birth rate now, the maternal death rate, the comparison between white deaths and Black deaths. This is a whole culture that an insurance dominated system has created. basically. And
Mm.
that goes all the way back to the stories of the first obstetricians practicing their skills on Black women and slaves. That hasn't changed. It's dressed differently. Now we have different schools and all of this structure to paint everything the way that it is, but it hasn't fixed itself. You would think that it would have fixed
Right.
itself. Hasn't fixed itself. Midwives really are though, just, I mean, to kind of end that note right there, midwives have historically been here before my family was here, from Lithuania, and before, the Amish midwives were here, the Granny midwives were here, the Black midwives were here, and they had outstanding maternal outcomes, outstanding infant outcomes compared to their white hospital counterparts, the male obstetricians from that time. And if you look through the history of the systemic eradication, right now they're eradicating us in a regulatory fashion, so legislatively, but systemically that all started literally with them, the hospitals calling them dirty. But midwifery, especially in this country, with the granny midwives, those women, they worked until they were in their 90s. They brought their sisters and daughters into the practice. It was community driven. They don't do interventions, clearly. We learned from the historical records, there's a lot of incredible historical records, that they didn't have to do physical exams on women to know how far they were in labor. And they weren't losing women at the rate they are today. So, unfortunately now they're regulating traditional midwifery out of existence. So, even today, where they will throw a license around for some of the traditional midwives, I want to say maybe 3% of them are Black passing the tests. It's really, they've eaten away at midwifery at its core, which was always cultural. It was always religious. And it's my thought that if they brought it back, we could save a lot of women, a lot of Black women. It would change the culture in the hospital, which is cut them without their consent. We don't listen to women, intervention heavy, insurance policies lead. So that is the midwifery fight.
How do you handle the high risk pregnancies?
Home birth midwives don't really see high risk people. We see low risk people, and you have to think that we were delivering babies, and women were having babies before the hospitals. Hospitals are actually very new. We would not have survived as a human race. Let me start there, right? We see women who are normal. So I can't see someone who has like a major cardiovascular issue, respiratory issue, someone who is sick. Otherwise, birth is not actually a medical event. Birth is a physiological event. It happens whether you're conscious or not. So even if you're in a coma, the baby will be pushed out and the body will stop the bleeding, release the placenta. The body is designed to do all those things. So when we say high risk, that means people who are no longer healthy and normal. Otherwise, we see people with twins, people with breaches. We see people who are older. We see them in their homes. And when we have high risk situations that come up, we all have them. Babies that get stuck, babies that don't breathe. We're trained to deal with it in both the traditional fashion, which is incredible because we're trained outside the institution, and also in the clinical fashion. So we carry meds for hemorrhage, and we resuscitate babies by the normal standards. But I don't see sick people, healthy people.
So what would you say is your biggest challenges that you may be facing as a midwife today? Would you say legislative, or because
midwives are sitting in jail? That is the biggest issue that we're facing. I want to give you a statistic. It's a forward-looking statistic. If 1 in 4 low-risk women chose out-of-hospital birth with a traditional midwife, meaning the midwife didn't have any regulations from the state, could deliver a breech baby, however this needs to look. Integrated out-of-hospital midwife, we could see as many as 75,000 fewer primary cesareans a year. Primary means first baby, first cesarean. And the problem with those is if you have one, the things that come with that, the comorbidities, you increase your risk for adverse health issues for the rest of your life, whether it's future surgeries, pains and adhesions, trouble with urinary issues. People have reported changes, deep functional health changes in their gut microbiome, and their babies, C-section babies, are less likely to breastfeed for as long statistically. They have bonding issues statistically and neurologically. They have microbiome issues, so we see C-section babies more often getting eczema, and it's all of it essentially strips the design of how to bring this baby here. And it sets the mother up for health issues for the rest of her life, like hypertensive episodes. So you can't, if we don't eliminate the C-sections for the first time, first baby, first C-section, and if we actually did eliminate 75,000 of them annually, we wouldn't have women who stayed sick. We wouldn't have repeat cesareans. A lot of the deaths that we have right now, they're called iatrogenic, which means they're caused by the hospital. Most of them can be prevented. I want to say 3/4 of maternal deaths could be prevented. And it's because we rush women. We don't listen to women. If it's Black women or women from a poor neighborhood, it's even worse. And the incentives in the hospital are to use instruments. The incentives are to do the C-sections. The incentives are to take control of a woman's choices. Again, I mentioned the forced court cesareans. They literally brought a courtroom into these women's bed space at a hospital in labor, did not allow them to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean, took them away against their will, and cut them open. 2 Black women with several kids, different states apart. That's something else to me. That's something else. That if that doesn't tell you right there why Black women die at 3 times the rate that white women do.
Wow. How can the patients feel any comfort or any confidence in a midwife if having to go through these obstacles?
Well, the midwife is at home with them. We do all their prenatal care. We have access to the same testing, so they get all the same testing you would with an obstetrician, all their lab work, all their ultrasounds. We still do all of the gestational diabetes and the group beta strep swabs. We're trained in birth emergencies, like I said, hemorrhages, resuscitations, stuck babies. We file the birth certificates. We do all the same. We just do it in autonomous fashion, and we can do these things without the institution guarding what it means to be a birth attendant or how women are allowed to have their babies. So in the hospital, for example, they don't want you to go past 42 weeks. If we had been designed to not go past 42 weeks, we might not have survived as a human race, but we see women past 42 weeks all the time. And babies come out healthy and the women are strong and they make that choice. That's the thing. The women with midwifery care get to make the choice without the pressure. If you have a baby in the hospital today and you decline certain things, CPS calls are also on the rise because they are, again, this is the culture of hospital birth. It has changed what is normal so much that when people are saying, no, thank you, I don't want that for my baby, they're calling CPS. So my biggest hurdle as a midwife is that we need to come back to recognizing traditional midwifery as a viable option for women because it is our constitutional right to choose who comes in my house to have my baby with me. I get the right as a parent to choose that. Midwives are trained and have been trained for generations. It's a heritage. It's a heritage in many cultures. It's a heritage for Black women. It's a heritage for religious cultures. It's a heritage for where my family came from. It's passed down. It is a religious right. And they regulate it. So they write laws and they tell you how they can be trained. And then it changes how midwives can practice. So in some states, it's actually a felony for me to practice. There are midwives sitting in jail for misdemeanors. They throw the book at them because this isn't how the state says you're allowed to practice this craft. Despite the outcomes, Midwives have superior outcomes to obstetricians across the board. Hemorrhages, better breastfeeding rates, lower interventions, more satisfaction. It is if you, to anyone who doesn't know, just saying those things, you absolutely know that this is about money. For every vaginal birth that someone does with me, the hospital would lose 30 grand to maybe 100 grand just for a vaginal
Wow.
birth to stay in the
Wow.
hospital. I don't charge clients. Right. So you see the incentive behind this. And when they write the laws, the ones lobbying behind it are ACOG, one of the most racist organizations, the ACNM, a terrible anti-woman, anti-Black woman organization. And they have so much money. And what they want is essentially to push out all the alternatives to hospitals and regulated midwives and regulated birth centers. Unfortunately, if you
Mm.
do that, it turns the midwives into obstetricians. The insurance companies, regulate them. So if we recognize traditional midwifery and brought it back, the old training, there are midwives in Hawaii who fought for this. They tried to regulate their midwives in Hawaii, and they fought pretty hard for it, and they got a law passed that recognizes them. It would change the birth culture in America. Because no longer would it be abnormal to decline a repeat C-section. It would
Mm.
set precedent for a lot of things if they recognized that traditional midwifery has been a heritage for many, many people here for a long time. And the government should not have the right to rein that in whatsoever. That is the biggest hurdle. And it does directly affect how women who have to have hospital births have their babies. Because if you imagine, if Pennsylvania, for example, recognized what I do as a heritage and it was familiar, they would no longer be calling CPS as mandated reporters for someone who declined a vitamin K shot, because that's what we do normally. That's our normal. They would no longer set standards that don't make sense for normal women having babies. It would have a massive trickle-down effect across the board. There is incredible research out of Johns Hopkins from Black community midwives. There's a whole museum of research and historical record. But that's what my coalition is basically about. It's about re-recognizing traditional midwifery as a heritage in this country, and it would change the maternal death rate and the Black maternal death rate drastically. 100%. Midwives are not covered by insurance. So you can imagine all those women in the poor neighborhoods that are on state insurance, they can't access community midwife care. And then, this is the interesting part, when they control how we get educated, guess who can't afford to get educated as midwives? The Black people, the brown people, and the poor people. So they
Mm.
literally regulate it, they bottleneck it, and they monopolize something that is a heritage for all of us here.
Is education expensive?
If it's regulated and registered and licensed education, yes. Apprenticeships are not expensive, but you're asked to be devoted to a traditional midwife side for many, many years, oftentimes for no pay or for exchange.
Mm.
But when you go to college for that, for nurse midwifery, or if you get a registration called a CPM, that costs thousands, and if not tens of thousands, if not way more, to be educated on something that has been passed down for so long. And the sad thing is, these educational pathways, these models, are not teaching traditional care. They're not teaching cultural and herbal remedies. They're not teaching women how to stop hemorrhages with their hands anymore. They're not teaching anything about functional health and diet. They're not passing this woman knowledge down. So even the midwives who are allowed to practice are practicing something that has been hijacked, and is just contributing to the model that we're already drowning in. So many women are dying, so many.
So if you run across a patient of yours and you discover that the plan that they have is harmful to them, how do you bring that to their attention?
So the plan that they have, so let's say maybe they had a let me frame it like this. So we meet on a schedule regularly through the prenatal care. So we build a relationship. we talk about normal physiological pregnancy, functional health, their diet. So I'm watching them grow through this pregnancy. My midwife brain is always doing a small risk assessment of what their body is doing. What are they showing me that is normal? Do we need to recommend this test? But if something actually did come up where I couldn't keep them or their baby safe at home, then we put them into a transfer protocol where they have to then have their baby in the hospital. I either go with them or we set them up with attorneys ahead of time. Other practices don't do this. This is not normal. This is just what I do because I work as a national advocate for birth rights in the hospital too. But I will set them up with hospital care directives, attorneys that are local, that they can name drop. I will teach them how to get their birth plan that will be broadly ignored unless they call it the right thing, how to get that into their chart and into risk management at the hospital. So when they have something wrong with them that makes them no longer healthy, we have enough of a relationship now because I've met with them and we've become friends, and you have to trust me and I have to trust you in order for us to have a baby together at your house. I have to gently tell them that I can no longer keep you safe and let's work on having your baby somewhere where you might need to. But I don't often run into these problems. Most of the people who see me are wholly invested in their health, and that's what brought them to the decision to home birth. Most people who are like unhealthy, smoking cigarettes, the normal, and I'm not, pregnant women don't normally smoke, but or somebody who just they don't even know we exist. Different type of people. They don't know that we exist. The people who choose home birth have chosen it because it's either religious to them. They understand that God designed them a certain way, and the hospital is not it. You can feel the adversary in the hospital. I could go on about that. Even Pitocin is of the adversary, in my opinion. It mimics God's great love hormone. But women are choosing it because they recognize that faith, that spiritual need to birth the way that all of their grandmothers did and their mothers did. Or they do it because they're already on track in a healthy way. Like this, they knocked out the seed oils, they're eating a certain way, they're not taking certain vaccine. You know what I mean? They're already on that track. So I don't run into people who suddenly become unhealthy. We try to manage those things a lot to keep them out of the hospital, because the hospital is not the safest place to have a baby anymore, unless you're really sick. If you're really sick, maybe. If your baby is really sick, but I will absolutely stand on that. That's a hill I'll die on, that the hospitals are not the safest place to have your baby. They're just not. We wouldn't be losing this many women, ranking
So
worse
you
than
have
states like Afghanistan. I mean, countries like Afghanistan.
so you have 10 children of your own.
I do. No twins.
All,
5 boys and
all at
5
home?
girls.
Are
No,
all births at
actually.
home?
No. My first 4 were hospital births. Epidurals, breaking my water, no C-sections. But I was, as a young mom who was having a lot of kids, something pulled me away from that and said, all of this felt wrong. This is not how babies are they're supposed to be pulled out of you. I should not have a man between my legs telling me, all these things it didn't. And I was young. When I got pregnant with my 5th baby, I actually looked on the internet and looked up, how do I not have a baby in the hospital? And midwives popped up. I knew about them from the Bible, but it actually, I really did. And a midwife popped up, and they were still a real thing. And they were real traditional midwives, like trained by women, like generational knowledge. It's so neat, the things that these old women can do with their hands and with their eyes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And then the rest
So
of the
look,
babies were all at home.
We got to take a quick little break, we got to pay the bills, right? But when we come back, I'd like to know, because it seems like we're on that track, what inspired you to become a midwife? But hold on to that thought till we come back, okay? that it was sponsored by the Wolfpack. So they sporting apparel. You can look them up online. As you saw it, it was www.wolfpack.com, and it's spelled the German way. I checked out a couple of things. They had a couple of nice hoodies and stuff like that. Anyway, go online, check them out, and see what they have to offer. Now we're back with Miss Abigail. I love that name, Abigail. That is such an old name. You know, I don't know anyone in today's time named Abigail.
I enjoy it. I like it. I did not when I was a kid. I did not.
Why? Why? You got teased about it or something?
Everybody when I was growing up was named Katie, Sarah, Rachel, not Abigail. It was a little different. But I love it now. As an adult, I love it now. It means joy. So
There you go. It stands out. And stands out amongst the crowd, you know?
yeah.
So but back to the question I was asking you. What inspired you to become a midwife?
So I didn't have like some pinnacle moment. I just having a lot of children was what I knew I wanted to do. I hadn't found a career path yet. Had a lot of options, kind of uh never really settled on something. Was just, enjoying life and had my first 4 kids. And when I met my midwife, and I excitedly said, "Oh, I think this is great. I would love to do this, like attend home births, be a midwife." When she told me how deep the community drive was, how important the community aspect of this, she knocked me down a little bit because I was like, this seems so great. Like, I really want to do this. How do I do this? And she was like, hold on. She explained to me that the community and the roots of the community were so important that nobody just waltzes in. Even if you could take a training and it only took you 2 years, you don't just waltz in. You have to grow up as a baby midwife. People have to watch you growing into the birth community by serving other women, spending time in those spaces. And so I became like a childbirth educator and a doula and a hospital advocate because I have a big mouth. I didn't intend on being this person who writes these crazy birth plans and knows all these lawyers. Now, I did not plan for that, but I advocated so hard. Sometimes I actually have to be followed around by security now.
Really? Hmm.
Yes, simply for helping women exert their rights in labor, their rights to photography, take pictures of your child, a lot of things. Take your placenta home. But what made me
You,
become a midwife was recognizing how deep this community went, that this traced all the way back a bajillion generations to women attending women in the community. The community knows them best. It's like its own little like microbiome. And so I actually, from 2013 until 2016 or 17, I actually just worked in the hospitals. I worked for the community women who were birthing without a midwife, the unassisted women. And then I was invited into my first apprenticeship. And that's what I meant by community. You don't just show up and go, hey, I took these skills, I'm ready to catch babies. Like, the women actually have to invite you in. And
mhm.
then you train under the elders who trained under the elders, and you every birth, every single prenatal, driving really, really far, and it took you long enough to get there, you better appreciate it. So I didn't have a pinnacle moment. It was just that's what made it drew me in a way that I could tell this wasn't just a job for me. It's a vocation. Like, I don't actually want to have a job. I want to stay home with my kids. I love them, but I love this work. I never wake up in the cold night and go, dang it, I don't want to go. Like, I have smiles on my face when I meet with these women who are coming out of 3 hospital births, and they get to have a redeeming birth where their husband catches the baby. Nobody puts their fingers
Wow.
inside them. Like, it is day and night, and you feel it once you walk back into that hospital after experiencing any of these. You recognize how deeply that adversarial hate women, especially hate Black women. Anybody who says anything against us, hate them. It's thick. The air is thick. You can feel it. um
Right.
so now I serve women everywhere in PA within a 2-hour radius of me. I went to school in Philly, so I will always go to Philly, even if I live 3 hours away. But so that's where I mostly see women. I don't get a lot up here in the mountains. I guess people up here aren't having mountain babies anymore. um, and the local hospitals know me. So now when I take somebody in or I make a phone call, I have to be escorted by security because they don't want women to know that you're allowed to ask for new doctors, that you're allowed to decline every single thing. That's why they had to call in a court hearing for this woman, because they don't want you to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean section. And she was going to stand her
Right.
ground, and they had to call a court order, and they will do that. They will call a court order to take your baby and discharge you. And the only way to fix the problem is for people to complain. So I put together a whole program where people will call. I have a friend who runs a hotline for hospital kidnapping. And if they say it's for birth, she'll call me, and I walk them through how to reach out to certain attorneys, how to file the correct complaints, how to get witness testimony, how to get your chart amended, because that's the only way to change it. Otherwise they don't care. I had a couple from Florida call me last month. They actually discharged from the hospital. The hospital called CPS, and CPS met them at their house with police and made them take the baby back to the hospital, escorted, and said, if you don't, we'll take the baby ourselves. There was no
No.
case. That is how
You
far they
see,
think they can go with control.
well, they politicize everything, especially your profession. It's really high up there.
Yeah,
What's the difference between a doula and a midwife, or is there a difference?
there's a big difference. A midwife is the clinician. So she is the person in
Hmm.
charge of keeping mom and baby safe. It depends on what kind of midwife you are and what state you live in, but basically they catch the babies, they stop the hemorrhages, they release the stuck babies, they help them breathe if they're not breathing, they keep mom and baby safe. And the doula is an educator and a support person. So like it used to be the word slave. They
Mm,
run the water, they do the hip squeezes and the back rubs. They help dad stay hydrated and fed so he's able to support mom. They're complementary roles. One is a
mm,
professional support person, or an advocate. Some doulas are very heavy advocates. It just depends on them as a person and how they were trained. But they know baby positioning. They know how to help women prenatally, postpartum. They just don't do any clinical care. So they're not doing blood pressures. They're not listening to babies. They're not catching babies. But I love working with them because women and the family should have a support
hmm.
system that my favorite thing is that when dad can just pay attention to mom, because nobody knows you like your husband, and everybody else does the work, you know. So the doula is the support and advocate, and the midwife is, I guess, kind of like your OB, but we don't do things like your OB. We don't cut people, and we don't intervene if we don't have to. Yeah.
I can remember as a kid growing up, especially like a lot of the women down south, especially with that southern mentality that they had. There was always a doula around. There was always somebody around. It was either a family member
Yep.
or somebody that was there to advise you, and even a midwife, because
Yep.
a lot of the pregnancies, they didn't. You weren't well taken care of when you got to the hospital. So a midwife was a good thing to have, and I think midwives are great. I think it needs to be really a part of the medical society,
Yeah.
you know, because it
Yeah.
works,
It does
and
work.
well, they want to monetize everything. So as you said, there's a lot of poor people that would need your services, and they wouldn't be able to get it if you start asking for a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing is that in my practice, I can see probably two to three people for no cost a month,
Hmm.
because I can charge whatever I want. I don't use People can't use their insurance. Insurance won't accept me. They want to prove me. Um,
Mm.
so if I set my prices at a certain rate, then I can serve everybody in the community because my needs are taken care of, and then I have the space to care for other people. When you're in those licensure structures where they took midwifery and they turned it into something very medical and you have to follow the state's rules, it doesn't quite work the same. You kind of have to charge the same as everybody else. You can accept state insurance, but they don't pay you very well. So then you can't actually see that many people on state insurance if you can't feed your family, you know? So even when they choose to license the midwives and they say, oh, we're going to let you guys take Medicaid, it's going to be great. You're serve so many people, but we're going to pay you pennies. How are they supposed to serve women in poor neighborhoods then? They can't.
Look,
The whole system
the
is set up.
structure, yeah, but the way the system is rigged anyway, the way that the whole structure is set up is it's not designed to help out babies,
Mm-mm,
women, black people, elderly
mm-mm.
people, maturing, as my wife was saying. It's not really designed for those people like that. I mean, they say that they are, but when a baby could utilize a midwife, where are we?
Yeah,
We got to have discrepancy over it. If babies need a SNAP program in order to once they're born now, how do you take care of this baby? Okay, so we have programs like SNAP programs, and we're in an administration now that wants to take the funding out of it. They
yep,
want to take the funding out of the education school. Now, some people are able to homeschool their children, some people are not. Some
yeah,
people got that 9 to 5. Some people got
I
that nine
know.
to five, and then they had to go back at 6. Yeah,
Yep.
to work.
The
So
whole
they
system is
rely
set
on.
up to keep them doing that, though. Keep them poor, keep them working 9 to 5. That's why we didn't learn anything real in school.
Mm,
Because then you take
yeah,
away the entrepreneurial spirit, you take away the creative thinkers, you take away the best students that I've ever had have come up from nothing. The brokest, the deepest in the community, they came from broken families. They became the best midwives. And if they didn't have the opportunity to practice traditional midwifery because the state told us they can't, they would have never become, and they're in their community. We take that away when public schools stop teaching truth or stop teaching entrepreneurship or how to do your taxes, you know,
well, back in my day, they used to teach you how to balance a checkbook.
right?
Yeah, you might not even know what that is.
I do know what that is. They taught us cursive. I had a checkbook.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
way back in the day when we used to have a checkbook. So you had
Yeah.
to balance your check. Yeah. That's the hey, look. Now it's a little different now. Everybody's got it's a card. Everybody's got
Yep.
everything on a card or an app. That's the new
Yep.
thing. Everybody's got an app. I see the kids, they got their phones. They want to get money, they just use their phone. They get money withdrawn. They want to pay for stuff when
Yep.
they pay that. They go to the restaurants, they do amazing things, and all they need is just their
It's a
phone.
pain in my butt as a business owner because I have to collect payments from all these different payment places. And then I have to keep track
Don't
of all of them. Yeah.
yeah. Don't worry about it. They're gonna start putting the chips in. Okay. We're just leading up to that. Okay. And
I'm
once
just
they
going to
start
live
dropping the chips,
further in the woods. I'll live further in
hey,
the woods and I will barter. I do not
hey,
care.
look, the babies to be born, and right as soon as they're born, chit, they put a chip in them.
Mm-mm. That's why you got to stay out of the
Yeah.
hospital. That's why I got, that did you know that when they do the heel stick for baby, they do the PKU screening on baby. So they stick the heel on day 2. The health department wants me to do them, even though they don't want to recognize me as a legitimate healthcare provider. They want me to do them. They keep the baby's blood sample for an unknown amount of time. And a lot of parents are now realizing, especially as the introduction of AI is everywhere, and they're going to be checking these things with AI. And some states have caught criminals by checking that stored blood, which is, I guess, is great, catch criminals, whatever. But why are they storing your baby's blood? And why aren't they telling people that? So
And
even
what's
things
the
like that
purpose?
in the hospital,
What
we
is
have
the
to start to
purpose of storing
question,
it?
huh?
Yeah, what's
The
the
purpose
purpose
of
of storing
storing
the
it.
blood? I mean, that's the big question. Why do
Yes, it
you need to
is.
store it
Yes, it is.
for what?
Mhm.
Maybe they do it for
Pennsylvania
research
keeps it a
purposes.
year. Pennsylvania keeps it a year. New Jersey, I think, was decades. New
Mm.
Jersey, I think, kept it
You-
for
you-
decades. You have to request it be destroyed or returned to you. It's
mm,
probably similar to them selling stem cells, fetal blood, and placentas.
mm.
Um, something like
Now
that we're
you
not
might not
fully
remember much,
grasping.
but up until like the mid 70s, they didn't do a lot of testing and research
Yeah.
on women. They didn't do it. So
Yeah.
maybe this is a form of research. I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't say why. If I know why they're doing it, then we can discuss that. But I don't know why they're doing it. Maybe they're utilizing
Yeah.
it for stem cell. I don't know. I don't
The
know enough
problem is
about it. But
consent. We don't get parents' consent. We ask them, "Can we stick your baby?" It screens for all these tests. It's not a diagnostic, it's a screening. So it's a maybe. It's a flag,
right.
a yellow flag, right? So you do get a lot of false positives, and they do charge people for the test, but they keep the sample for an unknown amount of time and an unknown reason. That's the issue. Is it's an unknown reason, and then they
Mm.
don't tell you as the parent why you're keeping my baby's blood sample. So, you know, um, in a home birth setting, we try to protect families and give them the choice. You can have all the things, if you want all the things that you get with state care, hospital care, or you can learn about them and opt out of them or into the ones that feel right for you and your family. And that's
Mm.
why they don't want us here. Don't give women all the options. Don't tell them how their bodies work. Absolutely not.
Are
You
you
know,
also responsible for vaccinations? Do you recommend
absolutely
the
not.
vaccination? You don't
No,
recommend them?
it's am I a personal non-vaxxer? I am a non-vaxxer, yeah.
Well,
I
yeah.
have 2 kids that had vaccine injury. They are 18 and 25 now. Um, After that, we stopped doing it, but also religiously, I don't, I won't do anything that has aborted fetal stem cells. I won't put anything in myself or the kids that has any of those things. We get medical care when we need it.
All right.
So no, I don't. And I wouldn't be, so as a traditional midwife, we don't do medical care. So we don't do vaccines, we don't do circumcisions. We do the kind of care that has kept women and babies alive since the dawn of time. But vaccines would be a no. And vaccines aren't really tested on pregnant women. So a lot of us would probably not recommend it unless you were somebody put in a high risk situation where the benefit outweighed the unknown or the
Mm.
risk. Um, so no, we don't do any of those things at home.
Growing up as a kid, we all had to get vaccinated. But before you even went to school, you weren't allowed to go to school unless you
Yeah,
had all your vaccine. You had to have a card, and you had to have all your vaccine. You had to be vaccinated for everything. And
yeah,
and I just noticed recently, since they've had this big talk about people not wanting to be vaccinated or whatever, now that they've had a spike in certain diseases like the chicken pox and what was it, the measles, they're
yeah,
spiking up now. So maybe vaccinations might be a good thing. I mean, I never had the chicken pox or any other of the diseases that come from that you get from not being vaccinated.
yeah.
Now,
Well, you don't need to
I couldn't.
vaccinate for things that don't kill you. So what we teach women is start from the
Mhm.
very first baby vaccination, the hepatitis B vaccine. That actually does have a laundry list of very negative and deadly side effects for baby. So you have to ask the parents, start from the very first baby vaccine and start with your research on what are we vaccinating against? What is the
Mm.
likelihood that my baby will get this disease? So if hepatitis B is shared from sex and it's shared from needles and it's shared from if mom has hepatitis and her baby share fluids, but the chance of your baby getting it is so slim. And when you look at the chances of your baby having a severe adverse reaction or potentially being exposed to having SIDS in a SIDS event, that's why a lot of women are choosing not to. And then they look at the next vaccine and they say, oh, this is whooping cough. This is actually very serious, very scary for my baby. I might choose this one. But then they get to ones like chickenpox and they might say, this actually doesn't kill people. Historically doesn't kill people the research is the most important thing. We can't just walk around telling people this is what I heard, this is the best thing. This is what works for just me, and this is the best thing. We call that anecdotal. You have to look at the research across a long span of time, and the research includes what am I vaccinating for? How likely is that to kill me or my loved one? Is it something prevalent in this country? Am I a traveler? So some people will choose selectively what vaccines they
Mhm.
choose. Some people will choose based on what the side effects potentially could be. In countries where they don't have the same schedule of vaccines that we have, their SIDS rate is much lower. Their autoimmune rate is much lower. So vaccines are a money maker. That's the big problem. The ones that are supposed to save our lives are now they're demonized because the vaccine manufacturers just went crazy and vaccinating everybody for things that we should have a choice. If we don't think chickenpox will kill us, I don't want it. I don't want what's in the ingredients, and that's not how the immune system functions. So some of the vaccines like polio might have been great, but then you come here today and we're looking at vaccines like hepatitis B for a newborn. That has a black box warning. I don't think, so that's where the vaccine thing is so not as black and white as people think. A lot of the families, my family, most people, my kids have had some vaccines. We haven't foregone all of them. It should be parent choice based on informed consent. And informed consent means you have all the information in an unbiased way, all of it. What happens if I do? What happens if I don't? What happens with the in-between? What happens later? And then you make a choice based on your family's best interest, your own personal
Right, because
risk assessment.
there are some diseases that you can later on they'll lead to other diseases if you weren't vaccinated for them at a young age, like shingles.
Yeah.
What is it? If you weren't vaccinated for the mumps or measles or something like
No,
that,
it's
later
chicken
on,
pox. It's actually chicken
It-
pox.
chicken pox.
If you
Right, there
get
you
chicken
go.
pox, but some people get shingles from having had the chicken pox vaccine. So it really depends on the person and what they choose is best for themselves. I don't think anything should be mandated across the board because health wise, I'm not you, you're not me, I'm not her, I'm not them. Our bodies are different, and I still have the innate right to choose what's best, as long as it doesn't harm everybody. Chicken pox doesn't harm everybody else.
Right.
Something
I mean, a
something
contagious
crazy
disease or
might.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
contagious diseases. Yeah, I think they should be mandated. It should be mandatory. I like with the COVID thing, and people were
Yeah.
complaining. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't wear on. I'm like, come on, man, really? I mean, the mask it protects me, not so much you, because it keeps whatever you got inside of you, and this way you're not letting it out. So it doesn't
Well, if
stop
people
anything
had
from coming
etiquette,
in.
if people had a little bit of etiquette, we would have navigated that whole situation with a lot less head butting. If you don't want to wear things that make everybody else safe or feel safer, then just stay home, or vice versa.
Stay
I
home,
don't really
really.
care. I don't care what people do with themselves. That's the whole point. What I do for myself and what you do it doesn't. I don't have the right to say how I think someone else should behave, and I don't have the right to say how I think they should react. you know, I personally
Well,
wasn't
I think
terrified of COVID.
if you have a disease that is contagious and you're just willing to give it to anybody, it's like you put a gun to somebody's head and boom, pull the trigger. To me, it's the same thing back in the
Everybody
day with
misbehaved during
AIDS.
COVID. Everybody
And
misbehaved
during
during COVID. They
AIDS,
should have just
the
let
AIDS
everybody
situation
stay
too.
home and stop being cocky. And there were so many people, that, and it was from both sides, that we really just should have had everybody stay home and just
It
waited it
became
out.
too politicized. It became too political.
Yeah, well, that's
That's
it.
what it
Yep.
became. It became too
Of
political.
course it did.
That's what it was.
Of course it did.
Yeah, my
Every
brother
time.
passed away from AIDS, and during that time, you had people that had AIDS and were still having sex with other people, and they knew that they had AIDS, and they were going around giving it to other people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were people in my
So,
friend group, even up until the early 90s, the people I was hanging out with were doing the same thing, and they all knew. But everything is going to be politicized anytime there's something big, because that's how you either get voted for or not, right?
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
This is very true.
Yep.
All right, Miss Abigail, we're about coming to the end of the show, and it was very, very nice to have you on. You were very informative, very informative. I learned some things that I didn't know. I didn't know existed. So, again, I got to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I had a good time.
Anytime you want to come back and we want to do this again, do a part two. I'd love to have you back. Like I said, we're not scripted here. You can see we're not scripted here. We go off the cuff. So I think
I would love that.
Well, it's more earnest. You're more honest.
Yeah.
Ask you that maybe you didn't ask me or you didn't expect me to ask. Answer the question. So I prefer that better, much better. So this way you're for real about what you do. So that's
Yep.
what we try to
I
do
love
here
it.
is do things that are real. Okay, so again, thank you for coming on. Oh, hi, my name is Kendall Stevenson. Thank you guys for tuning into the Empowerment Network, and I hope you come back. You can continue to stay tuned because, like I said, we're gonna have a whole lot of new topics and different things that we're gonna talk about. So hopefully you stay tuned. Thank you and peace.
Welcome to the Empowerment Show, when knowledge meets action. Yeah. We break down barriers to financial literacy. Speak truth to power, real conversations. Oh, voices that inspire change, challenging the status quo. Tools for building wealth, taking control. Your future